All right, and we are live. Mr. Hentschell, Mr. Bill Hentschell, so glad to have you on. My gosh, this has been a long time coming, and I'm just so excited for our conversation today. It's warning, trigger alert, it's going to be a little controversial, but I would expect nothing less from you. So there we go.
Well, I like controversial. That's right.
Yeah. And, how do you know if somebody's a thought leader? They're willing to say things that are a little bit more thought-provoking, that maybe make you think. So today's live is truly to make you think. And I'm very curious to hear people's thoughts and opinions in the comments below. So before we get started, we have known each other and worked together. We have done some of the coolest, most fun engagements globally. In fact, we just did something where our results were absolutely incredible. You are truly a thought leader, one of my favorite people to work with and friends, personal friends of mine. So thank you. Thank you for being on. And for those who don't know you, you run an $18 billion number. You work across Cisco's global partner organization for NX. And you are an incredible family man, incredible adventure junkie. You've done some of the coolest, craziest things that I've even heard of. I didn't know some of them were even a thing. So before we get into this, for those who don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, wow. Well, you hit a lot of it right there. From an early age, I was big into adrenaline. It's kind of ironic that I have this Cisco helmet back here, motorcycle helmet, that actually has a stage prop. And the person that gave it to me at the time didn't realize that they came in different sizes and got me a small. And I'm a 6 foot guy, pretty average, and that it wouldn't even fit over the top of my head. So she was like, "Oh, I didn't know anything about motorcycles." But I used to race motorcycles. Bungee jumping. I flew ultralights, scuba diving, whitewater rafting during gully season, which for those that are whitewater rafters will know about that up in West Virginia. It's only class 4 put in at a dam release. Anything crazy, skydiving, all of it. And then I had kids, and I said, hey, I'm going to tone it down. So I keep it pretty much just hockey these days, just a lot of hockey. So I do hockey and mentoring. I mean, I love to do mentoring. I do a lot of charity work mentoring. I mentor a lot of people at Cisco. I mentor a lot of people at other companies, even some competitors. My whole life philosophy is if I can leave someone in a better place than when I found them, I feel like I'm doing good in the world, right? I kind of have that thought of, if I were to get hit, God forbid, by a truck tomorrow, who would show up at my funeral? What would they say? And that's kind of the way I approach teams, the way I approach culture, the way I approach customers, and then obviously I have fantastic friends that I love to spend time with, like yourself.
Well, thank you. You're incredibly connected. I'm glad you brought up the charity piece. So shout out to Vanessa Russell and the Love Never Fails team. They're doing incredible work. If you don't know about them, please go over them, follow them, like them, support them. But one day I called you and I said, hey, we've got this mentor. He's a traffic survivor. And would you be willing to just give him 30 minutes, 45 minutes? How many people have you since mentored since then, including him, who's doing amazing, by the way?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's one of my big success stories. He was a heroin addict when I first talked to him, and now he's in a biomechanical company doing circuit boards, and clean, living in a new place. He's got a brand new house. He's doing fantastic. But I'm up to around 93. I've been doing it. I do 1 hour a week, every week, for 5 years now. I missed some weeks, holidays, etc. And so I'm about 90-ish people so far.
And you've been an incredible supporter for, raising money for human traffic survivors across other things. So thank you. Thank you for that. Truly. If nothing else, thank you for the work that you've done. And you've been a mentor of mine for years now, almost a decade, and at least a handful of my dearest, closest, best friends. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah. You've kind of seen it all, Bill. You've seen it all. You've been in the industry. I'll let you decide if you want to say how long, but you've been around for a minute.
Well, I've been at Cisco for 24 years, and I'll say I've been in the industry long enough that I was actually worked at a bank in a previous life, and it was the invention of digital currency like Bitcoin and stuff. It was way before. There was something called DigiCash. And we were trying to pioneer it, but that was back when the internet was just started. Google wasn't even invented yet, so that'll date me a little bit there. And it was wild because you had to store these tokens on your PC and then use them and like send them in. So you had to determine how much do I want to leave on the bank servers, how much do I want to put on my personal computer, because if I lose it, I lost that money. And so it was really interesting times. I got really into like elliptical curve cryptology and understanding how to do that and do PKI and all the exchanges, which I think led to I started the security practice at Worldwide Technology 26 some odd years ago, when just having a firewall was a big deal. So that also dated me a little bit. But yeah, been doing it for quite a while.
You really have, and it's amazing to see some of the programs that you've rolled out, some of the solutions that you've built. In fact, we're working on something right now around AI that Cisco's doing, and it's truly innovative, on that topic of AI, which is, of course, the buzzword du jour, but I think it's going to be around for a minute. I think this is something that might stick around. We'll see. Yeah. So I want to start with something controversial, because that's what you do. Yeah. Like I said, you've been around, you've seen a lot of things. You've worked with literally the largest organizations in the world. You just mentioned WWT. They're the largest Black-owned company. I think definitely in the country, might be in the world. I'm not sure. Just an incredible organization across many others. And I want to know, what do you think folks are doing wrong when it comes to AI?
Well, it's the running joke, I think, not just at Cisco, but across the industries. If you don't say the term AI at least 6 times, you haven't completed your session on stage or your presentation. Is like, you just got to say it. Even if you have no clue what it is, you got to say it. And it's an interesting time right now as companies are trying to figure it out. I remember back when I used to do a lot of security. That's, as I said, my background's all in network security, cybersecurity. And I remember going to an RSA conference right when network and mission control first became like a buzzword and a thing. And every single booth had NAC on it and something. It was crazy stuff. Like, you'd see somebody who's selling, pagers, and they'd be like, and we do NAC. I'm like, what? It was really odd, but it was like they had to say it. They had to have that buzzword. Right. I see that with AI right now. And so when I'm talking to our partners and our customers, I'll say, hey, what's your AI strategy? And they're like, oh, we're doing it. And I'm like, great. And what does that mean? Exactly. and I think, that's kind of the first thing that I see people making mistakes around AI is they haven't acquired talent. They don't have somebody who, like, the ones that are furthest ahead, they have like even some companies are having like an AI, it's even C-level, like a chief marketing officer, a chief AI officer, or somebody like a CTO for AI that just understands all the implications of AI, what it can do for you, what it can't do for you. And so that's one area that I see a lot of people making a mistake, is they're saying the buzzword because their senior executive wants to hear that. Right. And like cloud has been hot for a while. We're doing something in cloud. I don't know what or why, but I got to say cloud.
What cloud?
And so, it's fully understandable, because if you approach AI and you look at it as simply something that's going to optimize and maybe change an experience, if you don't really think that through, I'll give you a good example. Like, chatbots are really hot right now. So I don't have to have a frontline call center or customer service rep, because I can do a chat bot. You go on my website, how can I help you? You type in something and comes back with a response. But if you're not thinking about that experience, just like back when voice and video, like we're talking today, right? If you don't think about the network, if you don't think about the connectivity then that could be a terrible experience. If it takes 30 seconds for that chatbot to respond, you're like, oh. And then you end up, and then you'll see the agent, right? Agent, just give me an agent. It's like when you dial in and you're like, agent.
Right.
And then when you get to the agent, you got a ticked off customer. You got the end users mad. They're not neutral. They're now mad. So you're now putting pressure on that next line of actual people to have to deal with an end user or customer that is dissatisfied. And so then they get worn out because, like, if all you're getting is the, hey, your stupid chat bot, didn't understand what I was saying, it wasn't properly trained or fine-tuned, which I'll talk about that in a second, then they're not getting what they need. They just get frustrated. They feel like there's an extra layer or barrier between them and getting the answer. It's not healthy for the culture in the company either. So that's one example. Other things that people, I think, do wrong around AI is they don't think about, like, where am I going to run it? Like, we just Cisco just announced a big partnership with NVIDIA and their Blackwell servers. And we're having new data center switches that have the NVIDIA GPUs in them to help with processing. Because one thing that, for the people that aren't really up on large language models or LLMs, is AI, when it's building its knowledge base and when it's doing a compute, it's kind of like a great example I heard from one of my peers is it's like counting cards, right? So you're counting cards and you get up to like 41, 42, and somebody says, hey, what's the weather outside? You're like, oh, it's sunny. And you're like, wait, was I on 41 or 42? Then I got to start all the way over again. So you got to, a network has to be lossless when you're connecting these LLMs. And so things like that. So that's just in my data center, but there's power and cooling needs. Most of the data centers that are running any kind of high compute and running an LLM inside and doing it, I mean, we're talking gigawatts. I mean, that's like 10 million light bulbs worth of power. And you can run a small city on what some of these data centers. And if you don't have the cooling or don't have the infrastructure, or you try to implement it somewhere, that's a problem. Which is why you see a lot of people using the cloud-based solutions. But then you got to think about connectivity to that too, right? So do I have security to that? Am I optimizing it? So, I mean, there's more, but that's just kind of starting to get into some of the areas that I don't think, if you don't have the expertise, can become a problem. For
sure. And you bring up a good point about maybe bringing in new people into your organization, as opposed to maybe retooling some folks or giving them extra training. So how do you strike that balance? So you help lead a massive, like I said, an $18 billion business. And they're global partners all over the world.
Yep.
How do they dip their toe into AI, or do they stay away, or are there progressions of folks? Like, is there a way to get into AI? What's your guidance there?
So, I think anything, like any new technology, and we saw it when clouds start to become a big thing, is, that old saying, how you can eat an elephant or a whale a bite at a time. I think there's a way, depending on what you try to do, so there's the good news is there's a lot of universities that have AI specialization. So we have a lot of early in career people that are very knowledgeable or at least book learned on AI and can help. And those, you want to bring that new thought, that new fresh ideas, and well-trained individuals into your environment. So that's one thing for sure. But in addition to that, when you think about AI, there's kind of three compartments that make it easier to consider. So you have what I'll call AI built in or designed in, it's called. So that's where AI is in a product, in a function. And that is where I can use the AI to tune something. For instance, like our wireless products have AI, or Meraki products have AI built into them, so it can provide insights. It can say, hey, I can see that we're having authentication problems in building 3, and here's what needs to happen. Or it can alert. Or in security models, you're starting to see AI evaluate traffic. Is that really bad traffic, or is that just somebody doing something different, where it's not bad, it's just new? So that's the design in. So tuning that, though, is where one opportunity, and it's closer to the baseline that I think a lot of our partners have, and customers, especially customers with more sophisticated IT departments, have, where they can use what they know, and it's not that big of a leap. The next area, the next kind of chunk is my company hates it when we call it this, but the plumbing, right? So you think about it. If you think of AI as like a really pretty faucet in your bathroom or kitchen, something real fancy, touch sensitive, hey, that's cool. But if I can't get the water to it, it's not doing much, right? So that back to what I was saying before about the connectivity between an end user and wherever your processing is going to be is another area. And that's a lot of partners already have that skill set. And it's frankly, it's not that much different than what you think about with like what we're on with video and voice, because that's also a highly time sensitive. If we start losing packets and the video starts getting choppy or the audio breaks up, it's a terrible experience. And so those same tuning knowledge on quality of service and packet prioritization and intelligent routing come into play in an AI model, because you want that great experience. And then the more complex is to actually understand the difference between all the different LLMs, understand what you're trying to do, because some are optimized for like text to voice, others are optimized for generative AI. And then just like going and grabbing chat, GPT or something is great. But if you're not, you got to understand like fine tuning and precision and make sure you're using the right language model. You might use a small language model, which is becoming more popular on like mobile phones and stuff. So that's like a whole separate category. But that's a way, if you kind of get into it and start from designed in, where you're more pulling the levers and changing the dial to make things better, and then think about the networking. I think that's a great way to get your foot in the door in helping, if you're a partner, helping a customer or your consultant, get your foot in the door with AI.
So am I getting this right? Is it in your experience and what you're seeing, is it better for partners to focus on a niche area within AI and say, look, we really specialize with this? Or is it better to bring in new folks and say, nope, actually we can do all things AI?
Yeah.
Or is it a hybrid or something else?
Well, I love that question. So it's the same. I'll give the same advice here that I give when somebody asks me about cybersecurity. Hey, I want to be a cybersecurity expert. I'm like, great. Do you understand client server model and operating systems? Do you understand networking? And do you understand programming? And they're like, no, I only know one or two. You're probably going to not be great at cybersecurity. And I think AI is the same thing. If you don't understand the modalities of AI and the importance of like like I was highlighting, the network connectivity in AI and how the intelligence between wherever the processing is and however you're consuming it is, you're not going to be, I think it's hard to say I'm an AI expert. Right. So yes, I think you do need all three at a minimum, the connectivity piece and the understanding of AI. And then inside there, I think there's a lot of sub things. Like I said, understanding just the different LLMs and how to fine tune and precision and how to pick which one, depending on what outcome you're looking for, whether you want to run it. And you got to be a data center person. Am I going to run this on-prem? There's a lot of cost, but if I'm doing R&D or something that can't be cloud-based, maybe I need to. So yeah, I think you really need to be at least two of those domains you need to be pretty good at to be really helpful in an AI model.
Yeah. And I think what, just in my experience, what we're seeing at Continuum is we're getting a lot of partners, first of all, putting up their own money and investing heavily with us, which we haven't traditionally seen. We've seen vendors, do things like, spend their own funding or give MOUs, investments, MDF, whatever it might be. But now we're seeing partners heavily invest themselves. And what's interesting is not just in the engineering side of things, but really on the leadership and sales enablement side of things. Mm-hmm. We are getting partners at the highest level and even vendors saying, help us educate our leaders on how do we speak to AI? How are we actually driving a business difference? How are we making AI business relevant as opposed to some technical thing that seems unattainable? And to sellers, how are we selling AI? How do we monetize AI? What does that actually mean? And then on the business side of things, how does this improve our business? How does this improve our bottom line? To your point, you brought up something very interesting, which is how do I make the experience for my internal teams better by leveraging AI, because they're getting a better experience for the customers, and therefore those customers are coming maybe with a different mindset or appreciation for the brand or whatever it might be. So I'm definitely seeing sort of this, first of all, investment across partners that we never saw before, but investment in different areas. It's pretty unique and incredible to see partner leaders coming in and say, we need to speak about AI differently than we have about other, and maybe they felt like they missed the mark with cloud or digital transformation or whatever it might be, that they are doubling down on their investments for their own teams to make sure that they are prepared to have these conversations and really drive the outcomes that you're talking about.
Well, to me, like you said, this is the next technology wave, right? I think cloud was a big wave, and everybody wanted to get on cloud. Everybody was saying cloud, even if they didn't really know what cloud meant or what cloud would do for somebody. We saw a lot of people in the early days of cloud. Like everybody moved everything to cloud. I want to get everything in cloud. I'm going to shut down my data centers. And then they saw some of the costs, and they're like, I didn't think that through all the way. Right. And so that's where you've developed these experts in cloud that can understand why I'd want to put something in AWS versus Azure, or in Google Cloud versus AWS, or whatever it is, right? Whatever the cloud is. And then we've seen this evolution of the market where they're doing more of that hybrid, where there's some stuff that makes more sense to run on-prem. Maybe I can do some dev up in the cloud where I got elastic compute. And I think AI is the same thing. I think, the promise of AI, the long-term promise of AI, in theory, a lot of the more finance people would say, hey, look, I can replace X number of people with AI. And there may be some truth to that, but just like robotics impacted like car manufacturing, for instance, right? I can have a robot weld something or install a windshield or put 5 bolts into a wheel. Is that you still need it? So it's evolving the skill set where people now have to, like, how do I program a robot? I used to be the guy that knew how to, or the gal that knew how to put the windshield in, but now I need to be the person that understands how to program a robot to put the windshield in. Right. And I think AI is the same way. So it's any tool is only as good as the person that's commanding it. And I think we forget the human side of it. And so I do, this investment to some of the things I was highlighting where people make these mistakes and they try to immediately replace, like the chatbot example, right? That's a really simple one. I'm going to replace all these people with a chatbot, but then their execution, their understanding of how it works isn't there. They didn't hire the right people, whether it be a partner or somebody on staff that understands those nuances. And a lot of times they don't have a clear definition of what do we want AI to do? What are we trying to get it to do? Right? Is it just be a supplemental resource? Because more often than not, AI is a assistant. It helps you get, it takes a lot of extra work out of the process so that you can focus on the things that are more humanistic, things that require the human brain to understand, because there's so much, even with the best AI models today, they still don't have the nuances. They don't understand sometimes situational awareness. That's back to that training. That's another mistake. People don't fine tune and train. They just take a LLM as they are, and they don't think about, I want to fine tune it to my business. Because just like technology, if I talk to my friend who's a lawyer, sometimes I have to shut her down, and I'm like, Michelle, I don't understand. You got lawyer speak on me. You started throwing acronyms. I have no clue what you're talking about. Or my wife's, she's a senior vice president of a bank, and she'll get into some credit card processing treasury thing, and I'm like, hey, babe, unless you want me to start explaining how BGP works, I don't like and so there's that same thing with AI, right? If I want it to do something, if it doesn't understand those nuances, you haven't added more data to it through the fine training precision, then you're going to get out what you put in. And, I think we've all experienced, like, whether it's Siri or Alexa or Google Voice, one of these bots where you say, turn off kitchen, and they're like playing music. You're like, no, not what I said. I don't know what I said. And that could be the experience, right? And then you spent potentially millions of dollars and you're not getting the outcome.
Right. No, I told you this would be controversial. I told you this would be. Not a lot of people are talking about how we're getting AI wrong. So thank you for coming out here and talking about this. It's a scary topic for sure, a controversial one. So I'm very curious to hear, what people are thinking, what they're finding. I know we're way over, and I know we need more time. I have so many more questions for you because you also run an incredible organization, and I want to know how you do it. I would love to have you back. But in the meantime, if folks have questions for you or they want to follow you, where can they find you?
I'm pretty light on the socials, so LinkedIn is where you want to find me, and that's usually where I post stuff. And then, I haven't done one in a little while, but I need to do another blog. I do a lot of vlogs.
Very known for your blogs. Yeah.
Yeah, they've been pretty popular. Yeah. I think the last one had 500,000 views, so they're fairly popular when I do them. But I try to be smart about them. I don't just throw stuff out, So.
Again, like a true thought leader. I cannot tell you how many times we get hired to do thought leadership, and they just want to regurgitate what everyone else is saying. And I'm like, then there's no thought and there's no leadership. You should say things when they're critical to say, not just to say things. So just another example of why I call you a thought leader. So Bill, thank you so much for this. I appreciate your insights and your mentorship and your friendship. Anytime. So thank you so much. We will see you again soon.
See you.